Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Thank you. I'm an alcoholic and my name is Elle. And it obviously is a custom in this place that we tell our sobriety date. Mine's June 24th, 1985, and by God's grace, I haven't taken a drink since then. I would like to, thank you. I would like to thank the committee for inviting me. It's quite a pleasure to be a part of this celebration. And I want to thank my hostess, Beth. She's been wonderful, and there she is. Thank you. And I would like to take this moment to welcome all of the Friends of Alcoholics Anonymous, our Al-Anon friends. It fills me up. Without these people, many of us would not have been here today, and I wanted to say welcome. Thank you. Also, we have the next generation here, our YPAW. And welcome. You know, you're not special, but you're special, you know. And if you need my permission to use whatever portion of this to help carry the message, please feel free to do so. Thank you. So, I forgot to tell you also, I serve as the Southeast Regional Trustee, and I would like to share part of my story time with you about that adventure in service. It's an opportunity that I didn't think I would get. I was living in my car on Cocoa Beach, and this is a long way. But I have to look at what our literature says. And on page 29, it says, each individual in the personal stories describes in his own language and from his own point of view the way he established his relationship with God. What it was like, what happened, and what it was like now. What was it like without God in my life? What happened, and how is my life today? But I know I can't get by with just talking about that, because I know I need to qualify. We'll get me organized here in a minute. Okay. I need to qualify as an alcoholic, and I'll take a few minutes to do that. I was born and raised in South Carolina. I had a wonderful family. My father drank too much. I went to a private girls' school in the 60s. I wore a little hat, and we wore gloves. We went to tea dances, and I was expected to make my debut, which I fell flat on my face. I went to this private little girls' school in Charleston. My father said, you can go to any college you want to go. I didn't know I had a choice whether to go to college or not. It was just where. I chose a place as far away from home as I could get. And that was Clemson University. At the time, the ratio was, now I've told this story and can't remember whether it's 52 or 62, but give or take 10, how important is it? Men to every woman. And I had arrived. I am ever so grateful that in the 60s, our institutions of higher learning believed that they had a parental responsibility. Otherwise, I don't know how I would have achieved the magnanimous 1.9 and 0.4 and all of these grade point ratios I accumulated. I didn't set out to be an alcoholic. I just enjoyed drinking, and it did for me what our literature says, you know. I looked forward to these drinks. I liked the ease and comfort that came from taking that drink. And once I was away from home, I did all I could. I learned how to smuggle beer into the women's dorm. They call them residence halls now. And I got out in 5 years, but it was only because I changed majors until I found one that would allow me to get out. I just kept accumulating and changing majors. So with that, I was pregnant, had not planned that either, and got married. And we set off on a journey that was doomed for failure from the beginning. Because my motives were sick and sorry. I am grateful for the husband that I had and the 2 lovely children. But as our journey went along, we parted ways, and I was given custody of my children. For some of you, you know the feeling when you can't drink because you're supposed to be responsible, and you can't be responsible because you're drinking. And I gave my children away. I gave them back to their father, who was then living in Merritt Island, Florida. My attorney said at the time, even a cur dog stays in the ditch with its pups. And I felt less than. And I know what it feels like to have that guilt and shame of making a decision, but I just did not know that I could make any other choice. That was the only one in front of me. I continued to drink. I didn't know what I was going to be when I grew up. So I went back to graduate school. Obviously, when you don't know what you're doing, just go to school, you know. You can hide out there. I received a degree in city and regional planning, and I worked in the Regional Planning Commission that does Palm Beach, Indian River, St. Lucie, and Martin County. And so I was down here in the South. And I moved around because you taught me later it was geographical cures, but it was to get away from the adultery mess. It was to get away from being tardy. It was getting away from the problems that I had accumulated. And I did not understand that every time I took this move, I was taking me and my problems with me. But I did find a solution to one problem, and that was banking. I just don't understand why you have to put all those little numbers in the book and add it all up. So I would just change banks rather than keep my bookkeeping, which led to other complications. So there are ways that we accommodate our limitations to survive. We do things in a very creative way. The more fifth steps I hear, the more creative people have gotten. Oh my goodness. But there came a time I had left living in Stewart, which I absolutely loved, but was in too much trouble, and went to up to Brevard County and worked for the government there, worked for the county itself. And it was in Brevard County that I hit a bottom that I didn't understand. My children were living there. I told everybody I was moving to be closer to my children. It was really to leave all the mess behind because they didn't want any part of me. And when I got there, I had a wonderful boss who liked to go out and eat pizza and drink beer all afternoon. So we'd leave in the middle of the day and never return. What a great circumstance that is for an alcoholic. And I wasn't even a beer drinker, but I would do that too, you know. I did have permission to see my children, and I would invite them over. We'd get in a canoe and we would travel out to some of the islands in the river and go camping and go down and horseback riding. And I tried to do all of the things that I thought a parent should do. But it's pretty impossible to be fully present when you are a drinking person. And I was not fully present. I did the best I could, and I was one of those who was a weeping, wailing, sniveling, whiny drunk. I would just get a little too much going, and then, oh me. And I would fall apart and I would cry and life was over. And in one of those fits, I said to my two children, I just don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up. And my son looked at me, and what I've come to believe to be a gift, he said to me, Mom, you are grown up. And with that, he cut all the enabling, and that was it. That was the last person I had in my life who was willing to protect me and to take care of me and to coddle me. I had been working in the county office building where they had a copy machine, and over the copy machine was a tattered piece of paper, and it was hanging somewhat like this, but it had a big old fake rope on it and a little squiggly at the bottom, and it said, if you get to the end of your rope, tie a knot in it and call this number. And for whatever reason, grace was in my way and in my life, and I called the number. The young man who saw me at a counseling, I didn't know it was a counselor, I just at the end of the rope. But the young man who saw me in the counseling center was not an alcoholic. And I'm so grateful that there are people who don't qualify for this program who understand the disease of alcoholism. Because he asked me all the questions that he asked everybody, I'm sure. How much do you drink? How often do you drink? Does drinking cause you a problem? On and on. Well, of course, none of that I could answer honestly. And he said, I don't think I'm going to be able to help you until you are able to stop drinking. And how he knew that in all the lies I told him, I don't know. But he gave me the name of a lady, and he said, you need to go to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And he told me I would know this lady because she wears a big hat. And I'm thinking, I don't need to know anybody who wears a big hat. I don't, if that's you, then great, but I wasn't into big hats at that moment. And of course, then I didn't go. I didn't go on that Monday. I didn't go on Tuesday, but I did find in the schedule he gave me of all the open meetings that there was an open meeting for beginners in Merritt Island, Florida, and I walked into that meeting knowing I needed to be there because I was told, but not knowing why I needed to be there or that I really wanted to be there. But I was greeted with incredible love. I sat through the meeting during which people shared all of how life was being sober. And I thought, wow, listen to all of this. I didn't understand that they were all sharing because I was there. I understand now how we sometimes do that. But I thought they were just sitting around sharing with each other how great life was. And I was listening to all these tales and appreciating what they had to say. And at the end, they offered chips, and then we stood up and said the Lord's Prayer, and I started to cry. It was the first time that I could remember that I had held hands with a man and nothing more was expected. And for that, I am grateful that the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous allow people to get sober. I was invited back. I went back, and I kept going back. I got a sponsor, and I did what was expected of me. I participated. When I got enough time, I chaired meetings. I cleaned up those nasty ashtrays. And I just was a part of what was going on. And my sponsor and people in the room said, don't get involved in the first year. And I thought, well, that's a shame. These people don't understand. I know about men. I can handle this. 'Tis a pity. And so I got myself involved in the first year. And my sponsor, Katie, said to me, "What? You have a what?" And so I scampered home and explained to him that he'd have to move out of my house, although it was very convenient, because we'd been dating a while and it just made sense that he lived there. And so I told him it was all about me, and that my sponsor said that I was not prepared for a relationship, that all I had was my life was unmanageable, a bunch of character defects to offer him in a relationship. And, you know, it was true. I hadn't done the steps. That's what I had. I thought I had a lot more, you know. And then, oh, well, he moved out, and then, well, we were still dating, and so I thought, well, now at this point, and so it makes sense. You move back in. I'm now working the steps. Come and move back in. We'll save all this money. And he did, and my sponsor, Katie, did the same thing and said, "You're what?" And I sent him a packing again. I share this story because sober as I was, absolutely sober, I was a tornado in the lives of everybody in the room. They worried about me, they worried about him, they were seeing the behavior that was so, not a lady at all, not a sober woman. I was acting like the street person I had become. And I didn't understand. I did not understand that I had nothing to offer in a relationship. I did get a sponsor that helped me through the steps, and I was horrified to find all the people that I resented and the things that I feared and all of the, all of the sex conduct that had gone awry. I didn't want to be that person anymore, and I was ever so willing to let it all go, and I tried my darndest. And through the steps, I learned that I had to accept some things that had occurred in my life, some choices, the logical consequences of the choices that I had made, I had to accept. Now, at first, I thought that meant you won and I lost. I thought acceptance meant that what I felt and the way I thought didn't matter. And what I have come to find out is, for me, acceptance is to see the truth. I don't have to like what I see. I don't have to wish it for you. I don't have to want it for me either. But I do have to see the truth in whatever is happening. And that was a wonderful definition for me to be able to come to accept the things I could not change. I also learned about forgiveness. There's some prayers that really helped, but I didn't know how to move those prayers from what I was saying in my mind to wanting to believe in my heart, because I really did want to let all of this go. And as I began to pray and talk to other people about prayer, I found for me another way of looking at this, and it's forgiving, giving forth to this higher power all that belong to the higher power to begin with. And that it is no longer time for me to judge or to make decisions. I don't need to carry this all around. That is not my business anymore. And boy, what a relief when I could literally let it all go. I set out to make amends, and I talked to my sponsor about each and every one of them. Some I was told I could not just knock on the door and say, "I'm so sorry that I screwed up your life," because I didn't know whether this person, the guy was remarried or not. I had no right to cause problems in other people's lives just to try to do my side of the street. And I wrote my son a letter. He was at that time in middle school. And my sponsor read it, and we decided to give it to him. And I told him that I was sorry for the mother I had been, and that I would like to set all of that right with him. And I would be willing to talk with him when he was ready. 8 years later, a long time for me, 8 years later, he called and he said, "Mama, I want to talk." And I thought, this is wonderful. Well, he and I sat on rocking chairs on my front porch, and we lived up in South Carolina at the time. I had married that man that I was going in and out with, and I said, "I'm going to the mountains. Will you come with me?" And he said, "Why, certainly." So my son came up to visit. And we sat on the front porch in the rocking chair. And as we're rocking back and forth, and I said, you know, I wish I could set things right. Is there anything you'd like to say? And that was like pulling a cork out of the bottom of a keg, you know, just everything came out. And he told me what kind of mother I was. He cut no slack. He told me what he had seen me do. He had told me what he thought of me and how I had embarrassed him. He told me his side of the street. And all I could do was sit there in that rocking chair and go back and forth and say, son, you deserved better. What can I do today to make amends? And he'd light into me again, and I'd say the same thing. You deserve better. What can I do today to make amends? He never offered a suggestion, but when we left, we hugged. And when I see him, it's cordial, but I know the damage of alcoholism is deep, and I'm grateful that he's in my life today. The daughter that I had given back to her dad called after a couple of years and said, Mom, I want to get to know you better. Can I come live with you? And I said, why, certainly. And so she did, and what a joy, what an absolute joy. I wish that I could say that all healing takes place in 8 years. Ray, to whom I'm married, we've been married for 23 years. We don't fight, we don't agree, but we don't fight. We try to practice the traditions and all the principles in our marriage. But this past weekend, I had the privilege of going with him to his eldest son's wedding. And we flew to Washington State. If y'all see me kind of like this, that's why, right? So I just got back from Washington State. And he got married to a lovely woman. And attending that wedding were 2 young men that I had never met, that had been estranged from their dad for over 33 years. He met them a couple of years ago. But through Alcoholics Anonymous, this family is coming back together very slowly. The young man who got married got sober in Japan. And he said, Dad, I understand why you did the things you did. Will you come see me? And so they met in Washington State. Ray was reunited with the children, and now, several years later, I got to meet the boys. Men. These are men. They're lumberjacks. They're big men. So healing is sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly and sometimes not at all. But, I know it's all in God's time. I tried, as I said, to practice the traditions in my life, and I would like to tell you a little bit about these traditions and how important they are to me today in my service work. I started my service work at the Merritt Island group, and I did take on the task of being a GSR to represent my group, and I've come to find that's the most important link in Alcoholics Anonymous, is the GSR who brings the group conscience from our business meetings to the district and to the area so we can make a good decision about things. I didn't realize there was such a thing. I didn't know what it was, and today now I see that it is an extraordinarily important position to hold, that service position. I now understand the importance of unity. I understand that it's the most important tradition that we have because all the rest of the traditions tell us how we're to maintain that unity and how unity works and what we need to do to protect that unity. And I think that that's the same thing in my marriage. I have to understand what that relationship is just as much as my group in Alcoholics Anonymous as a whole. And that is my responsibility. Those are not your traditions, they're mine too. And I have that responsibility to make sure that the unity of AA is here so that our YPAWs who are not yet here have a place to come. I've got grandchildren, so I want to make sure our unity is here. And I'm a firm believer in the primary purpose. I appreciate all of the other possibilities that exist. I understand, I've got other issues other than alcohol. I appreciate that there are other places for me to go to resolve those. The primary purpose is alcohol, and I am adamant that we make sure that we preserve AA, preserve that primary purpose. Because with the habit, thank you. There are many of us who came here and we did more than drink, but there really is a solution for everything else. Excuse me. And another tradition that's important is our seventh tradition. It's important for me to be self-supporting. I was reading the program for this event, and in the front or somewhere into all of the pages, it says, why do we pay for this? It is a great explanation of why we pay to come together like this. This is a self-supporting event. We need to help support it if we're going to participate. And so I urge you to read that if you get a few minutes. But also during my business meetings in my home group, the Pass It On group in Walhalla, South Carolina, when we have a business meeting, we designate certain amounts of money to go support our area, the district, and our general service office. And I just thought that money was just going to New York to a black hole. Well, what I have seen is not that at all. First, these are wonderful pictures. These are amazing photographs. They're preserved in our archives. They're preserved in a special room with the proper temperature so that these are here for us and those to come. There's a drawer in that archives room, and I said, may I look at it? I was serving on the trustees archives committee. They said, why, certainly. And I opened the drawer. It was a filing cabinet packed full of photographs, none of which I will see in my lifetime published because we don't have the copyright. But if we don't preserve them, then they won't be here for those who can have a chance to see them. So part of my money goes for that, and I know that. Part of my money went, and your money went, to translate the literature of the big book into Japanese so that my stepson could get married and have a wonderful life because he's sober. In Toronto, I saw that big Japanese flag come out when they were doing the parade of flags, and wow, I knew that somebody had helped so that there were people from Japan here. I heard a story today about Polish literature, being translated and not sent to Poland. It was being used, I can't remember the state, but it was being used here in this country. So that's where our money goes, to help the suffering alcoholic. And, what better place? Our money also went to Egypt. And when I went to Egypt, I was so excited. I called everybody that I could on the, through the internet, and I got connected and I got meetings, and I thought, okay, I'm going to be able to go to these meetings. I'm going on a tour, and when we're here, I'll go to a meeting. And then I said, by any chance, are any of these meetings in English? And they said, yes, they all are. We hope to have a meeting in the future in our native language. Now, I don't know what it's like for you, but I got sober in English, and that's my primary language. We have a whole Spanish community, hola. And we're asking them to participate. We need to make ourselves available and make the literature available so that they have a chance at recovery. But it's not just that community. We've got many, many, many people who don't speak the language that I speak. So when I heard that you would get sober in Egypt, in English when you're not supposed to drink anyway. I can't imagine how people do it. You know, the culture says you don't drink. How do they do it? The only women I talked to in Egypt were expatriates relocated there. There was not one Egyptian woman sober that I communicated with. So we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of cultural barriers, we have language barriers, we have all kinds of things. But and Phyllis may tell you a little bit about this while she's here, but I'm going to get one leg up because I don't think she's here yet. So she's our General Service Manager at our General Service Office. And we have two corporations. We have AAWS, which is where the General Service Office is, and then we have AA Grapevine. And we have two separate entities. Our General Service Office has now made it easy for us to give birthday contributions and group contributions. You can go do it online. So I think that's wonderful that we have made it easier and softer for all of us to make recovery possible for those who are looking for it. But the grapevine, bless its little heart, as we say in the South, is having difficult times because it doesn't take contributions. We only fund the grapevine through subscription or the sale of literature. So we're in deep stuff, and you'll hear more about that this weekend. And I know that there are some flyers that are going to be put out. And please express your opinion. Whether you read the grapevine or not, your voice counts. This is the first time that I'm aware of being able to get information from the entire fellowship. And I'm glad to be a part of it, and I'm glad you can be a part of it too. Another concern that I have in regard to the traditions is social networking. And we had a wonderful announcement about that. I had my beautiful little face up in my Facebook, and then I had that people were emailing me about going to this meeting or that, and before you knew it, it just sounded like recovery. So now I've got a lovely picture of my river up there so that if you want to say something about something, you won't have my face attached to it, or my full name, I hope. So we have to be really careful. We want to be very careful of what we do to each other, because if I go to your Facebook account, then I can see all the people you're connected with, and it goes on. So unity is not the same because of cultural differences, and unity is not the same because of finances or all sorts of things. And I think about my sponsors I've had over the years and how they've guided me. We just buried one. So, 61 years sober? Yeah. So, sponsorship is amazing. It's a lifelong commitment, even in relocating and changing and firing and rehiring and whatever else we do and all the shenanigans. You know what? There's such a bond in sponsorship that cannot be broken. And I think about, in Japan, you don't get sponsors. You can't go up to somebody and say, will you be my sponsor? Because there's a culture where the sensei or the teacher invites the students. The students don't say, will you be my teacher? You have to be invited. I cannot imagine what is happening there to all those people looking for help. I know a lot of them are leaving the Japanese meetings and going with their English-speaking meetings so that they can get somebody who perhaps is not Japanese from another culture who will sponsor them. So we're so blessed. Oh, gosh, we're blessed. And I mentioned about holding hands also. I think about 13th stepping, and that goes each which way, and however it can go, it is all possible ways. But I also remember being asked for money. Somebody wanted to borrow money. I gave them money. I didn't know borrow in AA meant gimme. I was newly sober. I was trying to help somebody. So I think we need to be sensitive to our vulnerable members. Not just the young coming in and not just the old who are here who need special help. They're vulnerable, but we all are. And we may be vulnerable on the inside when you can't see it. I always ask, may I hug you? Because I don't know who has been molested and maligned and is terrified to have arms put around them. I always ask that question.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think.
So, I'm not sure. I sure did do a long commercial on my Surface stuff. I have not found it overwhelmingly confusing how our service structure works. By the time I catch on, I'm told I need to rotate. I think that's how it goes. But there has always been at least one person ahead of me who is willing to hold my hand and guide me into the next service position. And that has always been, and I hope will always be there. Because if it is not me, then who? Who is going to be here to help Alcoholics Anonymous? Who is going to be in service to make sure that we are healthy enough and alive and well to receive those who are seeking a way out? And if it's not now, then when? When do I make that commitment? So for me, I have to ask myself those questions, when sometimes I'd much rather be doing something else. I need to say, this is my responsibility today. If you were at the International Convention, hey, fun? One of 53,000 present, then approximately 6,000 to 7,000 who did not register, but who came on site and visited the booths, and we had a gang. But in the closing, we had a reading from A Vision for You, and there's just one little piece I want to read tonight. See to it that your relationship with Him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. And for me today, the way that I see that my relationship is right with God, the God of my understanding, is to continue to work the steps, to stay active in my home group, to participate in general service, and to do the things that I think that my higher power would like me to do to become the woman that He's always wanted me to be. And so I look forward to meeting as many of you as I possibly can this weekend. I'm going to be missing in action Thursday and Friday, back on Saturday. So, have a wonderful time. Our committees have done a great job, and you all are in for a ride. Thank you.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with, and it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.